First timers, get out of here, Madhva. You just. Okay, one person, 2, 3, okay, 4. I'm going to start in a very practical way so as to deliver what was advertised, and that was how to distribute a book anywhere, at any time, to anyone. And I'm going to start with the hardest part first to get it out of the way, because what perplexes many is asking for a donation. First, you have to have a reason, a good reason to ask people for donations, because it's an uncomfortable thing to do. So let me give you a couple of good reasons. One of them is that Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita, don't share this with people who are not devoted or austere. So we don't go out and willy-nilly just throw these literatures at anybody. We look to qualify people. And money is a token. When people hand over something, it is a recognized exchange that shows their goodwill. At least it shows that they're giving their attention to the interaction, because money is something people work very hard for. It represents their life energy. So when we ask respectfully for a donation, and in a very straightforward way, which I'm going to teach you in just a moment, it solidifies the interaction spiritually. It connects them to the actual spiritual activity that is occurring in their life at that very second. We give them the opportunity to give something in return, which helps to qualify them to accept and read the literature that we're giving them. That's why we're giving them the opportunity to give a donation. Can they give something besides money? Absolutely. Some people don't have money readily available. Of course, when people say we don't have money, we say that's good because we don't accept cash. We take MasterCard, Visa, American Express, Carte Blanche, and Diners Club. And we started saying that before we did accept credit cards, and we found that many people remembered that they had cash in their pocket right after we said that. In any case, we just want to see that the person's interested in the book. So if somebody pays attention and they're vitally interested in what we're offering them, but they just can't give something in return right then, something, some money or any other kind of offering, then there is no difficulty in letting them take the book. We need outlets. We need good homes. We need places to put these books. So it's not an issue. We're not doing this to raise money. We're doing this to help people connect with transcendental knowledge. So, as far as donations go, when I ask people for a donation, I tell them that we don't sell these in the normal way, like in a bookstore, but we ask for a donation, and then I say we don't need the money. The only reason we ask is that when you give something in return for spiritual knowledge, it connects you to the previous teachers who have passed it down over many generations, and it allows you to enter deeply within the knowledge. I'll say it, please repeat. We don't sell these like in a bookstore. We only ask for donation. We don't need the money. The only reason we ask, it's an ancient tradition. When you give something in return for spiritual knowledge, it connects you to the previous teachers who have passed down the knowledge over many generations, and it allows you to enter deeply within the knowledge. Now, if you think you're going to forget this, I have it all on a handy little card here. All the steps that I'm going to teach you today of how to sell a Bhagavad-Gita on its own merit. Before I do that, there are various cultures in the world, and we interact with them in slightly different ways. So the steps I'm going to first teach you of how to sell a Bhagavad-Gita on its own merit are mostly applicable to Westerners. So before I go into it, someone might ask, what about Indians? We're sitting here in India. How do you sell a Bhagavad Gita to an Indian? And here's how I do it. When I hand over a Bhagavad Gita, if I do hand over a Bhagavad Gita to an Indian, I tell them as I'm handing them the book that it's not for you. Because 99% of the time when I hand a Bhagavad Gita to an Indian, they say, I know Bhagavad Gita, I have Bhagavad Gita, my mother knows Bhagavad Gita, and my grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. So when I hand them the Bhagavad Gita, I say, this is not for you, because you already know Bhagavad Gita. You have Bhagavad Gita, your mother knows Bhagavad Gita, and your grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. And they say, yes, you're very true. It neutralizes the objections they were just about to offer. Then I bring up the fact that they know more about the Bhagavad Gita than I do. I take the role of a student rather than a teacher. And this is one of the techniques I'm going to mention in distributing a book to anyone. Take the role of their student, they're the teacher. You're not condescending and giving them something they don't already know. And I'll tell you how to do that in just a minute. So the Indians, that's the first way. And then I tell them that you know that Krishna says that anyone who passes this on to others becomes most dear to him. So we're giving you this so you can pass it on to someone who doesn't already know Bhagavad Gita. And a few years ago, we tried this experiment. We distributed Bhagavad Gitas in front of Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi Mandir on the last Ekadashi in Kartik. And we brought 1,008 Bhagavad Gitas, and we sold them all in one day. And one of the ways that we did it was we brought little hundis with us, because Indians recognize hundis. So we tell them it's not for them, and they can give a donation so that we can print another one and give it to somebody else. And they were very happy to give. The other way that I talk to Indians is I don't hand them anything. For instance, if we're going door to door and I knock on the door and Indians open the door, I introduce myself and then I tell them about what we're doing. And that includes preserving the Vedic literature, the Vedic culture, through mass distribution and education. And I tell them how we are printing Bhagavad Gita in many languages, including Chinese and Japanese and Russian. And I name the many languages that we print Bhagavad Gita in, and that we have centers to teach young people and children the Bhagavad Gita, to preserve the culture. At the point of explaining the work that we're doing, oftentimes they're curious, how can I help? It's at that point that I say, we just ask for money. Very straightforward. So we're here as a fundraiser, we only ask for your help. And they're very happy to give money. I find that if I hand them a Bhagavad Gita first, they oftentimes think in terms of how much does this cost. But when I explain the general programs that we're doing to spread Vedic knowledge all over the world and simply ask them to help as much as they'd like to help, they're very willing to generously give. After they give, I start giving them books, which they're very happy to receive after they've given a donation. So those are two ways in which we approach Indians. Another point I'd like to mention now, and I will mention, about talking to Indians is recently we started a program called Go Matsya. Go Matsya is based on the Matsya avatar who saved the Vedas. And when we are going door to door, we're finding a large population of Indians in most of the major cities around the world. And when we present to them our program called Go Matsya, which allows them to join with us to preserve the Vedas through mass distribution and education. Through mass distribution and education. And we tell them that one of the ways that they can help in that is to join Go Matsya, keep one set of Bhagavatams in their home, and that's the preliminary stage. The next stage they can join is they can keep a set of Bhagavatams in their home and they can refer others. And many people have friends they know of who would also like to preserve the Vedas through mass distribution education, and they'll give you a list of names. Or they'll personally take you to their homes and say, knock on that door, or they'll knock on the door themselves, or they'll call the people on the phone and say, listen, Dilip, get over here. I got something for you to join. And the third level they can join is called an organizer. They can get involved, and they can themselves, if they're self-starters, go out and find other people who can take Bhagavatam sets and find other people. So there's three levels. One's called an advocate, another calls a distributor, and the third is called an organizer. And when we give them these three steps and ways to join an organization that is preserving the Vedas, they're more than happy to join. And as a consequence, they naturally keep at least one set of Bhagavatams in their home. And very readily invite other people to take the Bhagavatams. Before I move on, let's just see if you have any important questions, any gaps. I'll take a quick. Anything? You're all set? Okay. Here are a few tips and ideas to ponder in distributing books. Pick the ripe fruits. When you go to pick fruits from a tree, which ones do you look for? Thank you. When you see an unripe fruit on the tree, you do the following. You grab onto it, you pull, and if it doesn't come off the branch, break the branch. And once you've broken the branch, you drag it down the street. True or false? Thank you. Ripe fruits are sweet, juicy, open-minded. This gentleman you'll see in the maroon shirt just happened to have walked into a Rath Yatra in New York. And you can see from his countenance, it was his first time there, that he was a, say, ripe fruit. Now here's a picture. On the left side, you'll see a Kinchana Krishna Prabhu preaching behind a table. And the person on the right was telling him about the only means of salvation in the entire universe. And very vehemently so. And you might see from his body language, would you say is ripe or unripe? How about this one? How about that? Come on, work with me. You have to be fast, because when you're out there looking, you have to look for ripe fruits. So when you find an unripe fruit, the Shastra says, don't pick it. Just walk away. Let the sun naturally ripen the fruit. It's not your job. You don't have to ripen fruits. Does that make you feel better? Yes. Say yes. Because you don't have to go out and convince everybody. There's already ripe fruits out there. Your job, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dusatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhima, is go out and select the innocent people who we call ripe fruits. If you have a cell phone, please turn it on and put the volume up. Because if your cell phone goes off, you get to purchase one of our books in the back. How much is it? 300 rupees. Okay, so please put your cell phones on loud and text somebody, ask them to call you. You can buy a book for 300 rupees. Okay, so another point is core and explore. There are 80% of the activities you already know that work. Don't just get stuck in a rut and always do the same thing. Take 20% of your time and resources and look for new ways to distribute books. You'll discover great things when you go out and practice doing things that are you've heard other people are doing or that you've always thought you'd like to do. Take a little time to try that because you'll make breakthroughs. It's also important to have a repertoire so that you don't just get stuck in one way of distributing books your whole life. Be a little versatile. Here's our prime directive. Our prime directive is leave everyone with a good impression. Let me ask you, what is our prime directive? Leave everyone with a good impression. Correct. Yes. Srila Prabhupada came as an ambassador of goodwill. We are in the... You have to finish the sentences for me. We are in the... Correct. Our motto? Correct. Our mood? We are Krishna's? Yes, if you go out as an instrument, then you won't feel fearful at all. And let me teach you a little trick about how to become a complete instrument. Has anyone here felt a little bit of fear about walking out into the unknown public and presenting Krishna consciousness by distributing books? 2 people. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Let me teach you a trick. Never fear again. That's going to be the title of my new book. Put your hand behind your head, base of your neck, and find... You didn't know it was there. There's a little switch right there. And when you flip the switch, you change from a human being that has all kinds of emotions and ideas about what might happen or what might not happen. And when you flip the switch, you turn into a robot. You go into robot mode, and robots just don't care. Okay, are you ready? When I say 3, flip the switch. 1, 2, 3, flip. You're on robot mode. You're free. No more worries. So when you feel the need, reach for the little switch and flip it up. And once you go in robot mode, you just go do your duty. And it doesn't matter what people say to you. Of course, it does matter, but you won't feel or take it personally because you're no longer a human being. You're a robot. You're an instrument, not a living, breathing human being. Okay, our mood is we remain... That's right, we do. We remain humble and hungry. Our mood, we go out for? Yes, if you keep this as the primary reason that you do anything, then you'll find yourself inspired, because we are working towards the end of life, how to transfer ourselves into a more permanent situation of service, where we don't have any distractions at all. And if we keep our mind fixed on service throughout our lifetimes, at the end of life, we can attain that goal, as Krishna says in the Gita. So we do writing for pure self-purification. We do speaking for self-purification. And when you go out for book distribution, if you keep it in mind that I'm only going out for my own purification, then you won't be disappointed, because you will be very purified by the activity. Just the activity of walking out the door, facing your fear, flipping the switch, valiantly going out into the unknown and trying to do the right thing according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction, you will feel purified and you'll know it for yourself. We do service for? Correct. And by the way, that's a brahmachari standing on the 2nd-story air conditioning duct distributing a book to a man in the 2nd-story window during Rath Yatra. I save one soul at a time, beginning with? Myself. Correct. And there you see at the airlines, they tell you to put your own mask on first before you put it on your children. That always sounded a little cruel and unusual, but actually you have to save yourself. My friend Satyadev Prabhu told me that the first lesson they taught him in paramedic school was a dead paramedic can't save anybody. So before we try to save the world, we try to save ourselves first. Treat everyone with? Yes. Now, if you imagine everyone in this room has a sign on around their neck, and it says, treat me with respect. How would you interact with that person to treat them with respect? Well, let's just try it. Close your eyes. Imagine that everyone has a sign that says, treat me with respect. Okay, open your eyes. Turn to somebody and treat them with respect. You got to work with me now. Come on. Give him some respect. Okay, stop respecting. Doesn't it feel terrible when people do that to you, when they come up and they show you some respect? The Sri Upanishad says, Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani vanupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatuna vijigupsate. If you see everybody in relation to the Supreme Lord, you see them as all parts and parcels. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmai vad budvijanata. Then you'll never hate anyone or any being. Anupashyati means to do this systematically. And this is the practice of book distribution. It's learning how to see people as spiritual entities and treat them with respect as parts and parcels of Krishna. Offer kind. Now you really have to work with me here. Offer kind. Focus on. Teamwork. Yeah, teamwork. This is in North Carolina. About 6 years ago, we got together for our first monthly Sankirtan festival. It was 108 degrees that day. That weekend, the whole weekend, and we all went out together and did the monthly Sankirtan festival. Everyone worked as a team, and North Carolina, since that time, has been moving up the charts. Never missed a goal, and they've continued to skyrocket. And so have all the communities around the world, including the great community of North America that decided to work together as a team around 7 years ago to help each other to move forward rather than competing against one another. Competition's a good thing, but it arises of its own accord. It doesn't have to be pushed. Preaching means? Don't be? Express? Practice? Make people? Why? Yeah, they are. Now, turn to somebody, make them feel special. 1, 2, 3, go. It's hard, isn't it? Come on, break out of your little silos and make somebody feel special. Mataji, turn to somebody. Break free, make them feel special. I like that. He's got his arm around him, he's patting him on the back. This is good. All right, stop. No more. Stop it. It's hard to stop, isn't it? That feels terrible too, doesn't it? Don't you hate that when people come up and make you feel special? It ruins your whole day. Every living being's walking out there with a little sign saying, make me feel special. And if that's all you do, you'll distribute thousands of books. You just think of ways to make people feel special, and you don't have to think very hard because every soul is unique. Ascharyavat pashyati kashcharenam, ascharyavat vadati tataiva chanya. Krishna says, the soul is amazing. There's nothing that's more amazing than the soul in this world. In fact, it's the only game in town. It's what's making everything interesting, is the animation, the conscious being. So be fascinated with that and remember what it is and go out and interact in conscious ways with people, and you'll find success at every turn. Develop the habit of expressing sincere gratitude and thanks to people you meet, live with, and associate with. This is the lifestyle of Sankirtan. Be grateful. Book distribution is? Correct. So now, here's how to sell a book on its own merit. Are you ready? Say yes. Okay, here's Bhagavad-Gita. Prabhupada said there's sufficient merit in the books that if you simply describe them sincerely to anyone, they will buy. Here's a few steps. The first is radar. Second, qualify. Third, trust the hand. Fourth, give a nutshell presentation. Show and tell, compliment, humor, and engage. Here's the radar. Ever seen one of these? It's a radar gun. They shoot it, hits your car. It bounces back. They read it on a meter, and they can tell how fast you're going. You can do that too. Hold up your hand. Point it at somebody, not just at me. I can't handle it all. And I'll give you the mantra to activate. Hi. Hi. Now look, see what the person you hit, what are they doing right now? They're all smiling because you're all ripe fruits in here. When you go out and you just go like this, just go out in Delhi and just stand in a street corner and go like this, hi, 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 and watch what happens. It's amazing, actually. There's another conscious living entity looking right back at you. Or maybe they don't look right back at you. What else might they do? You say hi, what might they do? Ignore you. Ignorance means ignorance. So I've been ignoring Krishna since time immemorial. I should know how it feels if people ignore me. That's part of the self-purification. Go out there and get ignored and see how you like it. And the next day when you're chanting japa, you'll sit there and it's like, I hate being ignored. And how do you think Krishna feels? You think he likes being ignored even while you're chanting Hare Krishna? I'm ignoring this sound. Use your hand power, make a conscious connection with people, and you'll see whether they're a ripe fruit, an unripe fruit, or something in between. And you can tell all that in an instant just by looking at them. It's so profound, actually, that you're able to look at somebody, make a conscious connection with them, and you can understand within a fraction of a second if they're actually interested in talking to you or not. If they're not interested in talking to you, what do? A, chase them down the street and insist that they talk to you. Or B, let them go. Actually, there's a C. Wish them well in your heart, say thank you very much, and let them go. A, B, or C? Okay, either B or C. Use your hand power to identify people who are interested. Once you do, qualify them. If you just walk up and thrust a book at somebody, they don't know why you're doing it. But if you ask a simple question that qualifies them and then you hand it to them, then they'll have a clearer understanding that, oh, I'm qualified. So a question that I ask people, first I identify, I say, I'm from California. Where are you from? Where? Bulgaria. I love Bulgaria. That's the home of the champion weightlifters. Fantastic. Here. Now, if I had a book, and somebody will probably bring me a Gita at some point, I will then say, Bulgaria, fantastic. I'll show you one too. Everyone say, I'll show you one too. Are we selling? Say no. Are we giving? Are we passing them out? No. Are we showing? Yes, we're showing. So I qualify the person according to where they're from. I'm from California. We're from Bulgaria. Bulgaria, fantastic. Bulgaria gets one. Here you go. From America to Bulgaria. Now, the next thing is trust the hand. Now, if you'll notice in this picture, you see the lady's face? She's thinking, and I'm being a little presumptuous, but I'm just saying, she's thinking, what do I got to do now? What am I getting myself into? I'm not sure I want to take this. And look at the hand. The hand's going, sure, I'll take it. Because that's what hands do. The mind gets all confused and say, yes, no, maybe, what's my husband going to say? But the hand goes, yeah, take it. So just deal with the hand. So if you put the book out, if you're a little bit liberal and you just put the book out for their hand, the hand go, thanks. So when you're putting the book in their hand, you can use a mantra. There are many mantras, and there are many other templates. I'm just giving you one template that after you learn that you can innovate from. So here's a mantra, please repeat. Books on yoga and meditation that show you how to get free from stress. Books on yoga and meditation that show you how to get free from stress. Books on yoga and meditation that show you how to get free from stress. Give them the microphone. Say it.
Books on yoga and meditation.
Books on yoga and meditation. Say the two parts so we can repeat.
Books on yoga and meditation.
Books on yoga and meditation.
That shows you how to get free from stress.
It shows how to get free from stress. Pass it over there. Make a mistake. We need a few mistakes. Yeah. No reading, just say it, make a mistake. English is their second language anyway. Go ahead. Books on yoga and meditation. That show you how to get free from stress. Give them both a hand. That took some courage. It took some courage just to step right out there. And when you go out in public, you just repeat this template and you'll be successful. I guarantee it. You'll sell a book to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Now, the next thing is to ask a question. In communication, the question mark is the most important of all punctuation marks. The question mark is the most powerful of all punctuation marks in any language. Now I want you to draw a question mark with your finger in the air. What does it look like? It's a hook. It's also a tennis racket. So you can use it as a hook. Whoever's asking the questions is leading the conversation. So when you're presenting a Bhagavad-Gita on its own merit, you need some questions, because you need to be able to hold the conversation with your hook and then direct it in the way that you want it to go. Okay? So here's a question. You've heard of stress before, right? Say it. And what's someone likely to say? They could say yes or no. And this is the right kind of question, because it doesn't matter if they say yes or no. Either way. You've heard of stress before, right? Yes, I've heard of stress. Of course, I'm very stressed. Really, you don't look stressed, you look spiritual. Someone says, I say, you've heard of stress before, right? They say, no, I'm not stressed at all. I say, I know, I could tell by looking. You don't look stressed, you look very spiritual. So now, here's something very profound. And that is the power of suggestion. Have you ever walked out of your house, your ashram, stepped out of your car, and you meet a friend, and they look at you and they say, boy, you look tired. How do you feel? You walk into the temple room, someone comes up to you and go, man, you look terrible. How do you feel? Kind of crummy. You start like looking in the mirror, like, what? Somebody looks at you and say, you look old. How do you feel? Old, right? Now what if someone comes up to you and says, you look spiritual? What are you going to do? You're going to suddenly, your mind goes deeper, deeper, starts saying, wow, what ways am I spiritual? Now this is just such a, if you don't remember any other part of this presentation, if you remember this one part, you tell people you look spiritual, and then ask them this question. Are you ready? What's your secret? Everyone say it. This is the most powerful mantra for book distribution. The other day we were in Pune, just walking around, meeting people here and there, and just walk up to people and say, you look really spiritual. What's your secret? And immediately their hearts open. They begin to tell you about their life and their pursuits of happiness and in spirituality, everything about their family. It all comes pouring out. Or they say, I don't have a secret. And then you can suggest one for them, which is, you must just come from a good family, right? No, I come from a terrible family. You must just be a natural. This question, you just practice this. Go around and ask people, what's your secret? And is it disingenuous to do this? Some people ask this, isn't this some kind of manipulation or insincere inquiry? No. Because what we're doing is a spiritual activity. We're identifying the soul, and we're seeing the difference between the body and the soul as we go out. Otherwise, why would we do this? We'd go sell something else. Why sell Bhagavad-Gita? This is our life. This is what we do. Vidyaminaya sampane brahmaniga vihaistani. This is our whole cultivation. So when we say it, we mean it. And when we say, you look spiritual, we also remember, I'm talking to a spiritual being here. And they also remember. And when you ask them what their secret is, the super soul starts telling them, tell them the real thing. Tell them you're actually a spiritual being. Now, once they tell you their secret, your countenance, the way you react to them is, I knew that you were an advanced personality. I could tell by looking at you. This is the way that you react to people. This is the part where you change from being a condescender, somebody who's interjecting something into their life when they didn't ask for it, to actually taking lessons from a great being. What's your secret? They tell the secret, and now you're amazed at who they are. So you take the book back from them, and show and tell. And here, I'll show you really quick. Please say it. And how fast are you going to show them? Because they're thinking, how long is this going to take? Is this a Bhagavatam class that I'm going to get here? What am I going to have to do? Do I have to jump in a van and drive away with these people? But if you reassure them, this is really quick, then their mind is a little bit at ease. The next thing, name dropping. On the back of the book, you drop through some of the names. We have on the English edition, Thoreau, say, Emerson, Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Einstein, the Beatles, Tupac Shakur. These are all people who read the Bhagavad-Gita and appreciate it in different ways. All you have to do is mention them. Next is, we turn to the text inside. Again, I'm talking about Americans. I already told you about Indians. And we open to the Sanskrit and we say, can you read this? And they say what? No, I can't read it. And say, I was just testing you. It's just a little tiny bit of humor. And then we tell them this has been translated into English over 400 times. Out of all the translations, this is the most popular in the universities. And then we turn to the front page. And we bring up a couple of names of universities, like University of Southern California and Georgetown University. Ever heard of those? Say yes. Thank you. The next thing we turn to is the changing bodies. Now, let me just tell you a story about changing bodies. 3 weeks ago, I did a program downtown San Francisco at a big corporation called Salesforce. It's a gigantic company. They have these high-rises downtown San Francisco. So I give a talk there once a month. So this time I took my little changing bodies exhibit with me. I walked into the big lobby to get my pass to go into the building, and I put the changing bodies down in the lobby and went over to the desk. As I was watching both the person giving me the ticket and keeping an eye on my exhibit, I saw this man walk by in a hurry and then spin around and go back, and then bring out his camera and start taking pictures. I subsequently then carried the changing bodies exhibit through security, started going up the elevator, and everybody I ran into stopped and gathered around me with their cameras. And I said, what is it? I said, it's reality, take a look. And when I got into the classroom, everyone crowded around to see it. People are amazed to see their entire life sequenced and shown in one place. It's amazing, this piece of art. And if you show them this, say, look it, we start here, we end up here, we're just passing through. Show them this. And then I often ask them, where are you in all this? Ask them where they are in the continuum, right? So now we show and tell. This is Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. So we say to people, this shows a self-realized soul. Repeat after me. Self-realized soul treats everyone with respect because he or she sees that there's a spirit within everyone's heart. Everyone loves that word respect, because a self-realized soul respects all beings, seeing that there's a common spirit in everyone's heart. And then we ask them this question. You've heard of karma, right? You can say that. What does it mean to you? And so what do they say? Yeah, what does karma mean to you? Activities which cause suffering or happiness. He just told me activities that cause suffering or happiness, and I say, whoa, what a great explanation. If there was more people like you in the world, if more people in the world thought like you, it would be a better world to live in. What does karma mean to you? What goes around comes around. Whoa, I really like the way you put things. If more people in the world thought like you, it would be a better world to live in. Now you ask me what karma means to me. You know, there's rabbits and there's butterflies and stuff goes around and around. And you say, if more people in the world thought like you, it would be a better world to live in. This is an amazing part of the presentation where you're able to gather some energy together and actually enthuse the person who's looking at the book, appreciating them. If more people in the world thought like you, the world would be a better place to live. Then we ask them what they do professionally. What do you do professionally? Nagar Kirtan, what do you do professionally? What? Brahmachari. Okay. They might say brahmachari, civil engineer, Sunday school teacher, I'm a dancer. And I say, really, this guy used to be a civil engineer. Or for Nagar, I'd say, really, this guy used to be a brahmachari. Say, this guy used to be a Sunday school teacher. Really, this guy used to be a dancer. And 50% of the people laugh, and the other 50% of the people say, really? And then we say, no, not really, and then they laugh. And as soon as they laugh, then we hand the book back, and we say this, that I started with. We don't sell it like in a bookstore, we just ask for a donation. We don't need the money. The only reason we ask is it's an ancient tradition. When you give something in return for spiritual knowledge, it connects you to the previous teachers who have passed it down over many generations and allows you to enter deeply within the knowledge. That if you want to help them out, you can tell them how much it costs. You can say it costs around, to print, ship, and store, it costs us around $10. Anything you give over that is a donation. I generally don't say that, but some devotees like to have a certain number they can put in, because one of the reasons people say I don't have any money is because they don't know how much to give. And if you're a little more clear about it and just say, you know, they're around $8, $10, whatever you want to, how much ever the book costs, and you tell them that, then it helps them oftentimes. So you can experiment with both. Now, a few comebacks, they say, I already know all about this. We say, that's great, I could tell by looking at you. They say, I'm a Buddhist, Muslim, Christian. That's why they can't take the book. We say, oh great, then I'll show you this one. So oftentimes when I hand a book to, let's say, a Buddhist, you're a Buddhist, right? Books on yoga meditation shows you got to remove stress. And because of his idea of being a Buddhist, he looks at the book and he hands it back, says, sorry, I'm a Buddhist. Let the record show, he said, sorry, I'm a Buddhist. So then I say, oh, I'm sorry, here, this one's for you. And then I hand him a different book. And then I tell them, yeah, this one you'll appreciate. The Buddha taught the body is like a house. We're only inhabiting the house temporarily, and the main purpose of life is to become free from material conditioning. They'll be very happy. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are you selling this? Are you? We refuse to sell it. It's too valuable. We just take a donation. How much should I donate? We try to keep it under $100, but in your case, we're thinking about making an exception. So now people will give a donation. If you go through this template and present as I'm showing, I promise you, they'll take a book and they'll happily give a donation. Then they give the donation. Then we teach them the Maha Mantra. We ask them, do you believe in the power of prayer? Do you? Yes. Say yes. Yes. Then say, please repeat after me. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Now, sometimes people say, I don't believe in the power of prayer. What do you say then? Say, perfect, I'll give you a mantra. Or somebody's about to start chanting the mantra to repeat what you're saying, and husband, wife, friend will grab them by the arm and say, don't do it. Why do they say that? Because they don't know what's going to happen when they chant the mantra. And we don't either. So there's something very powerful that happens when you chant this mantra. And when you teach people how to chant Hare Krishna, when you meet them, you'll notice that you start thinking about the value of the mantra. And you also get special mercy from Lord Nityananda by teaching each person the Maha Mantra. When you sit down to chant your japa, you'll feel more inspired to chant. Then we give them prasadam. One of the quintessential One of the most popular prasadam items we have in America, they're cookies, or we have lollipops. Prabhupada gave us permission in 1972 to offer lollipops to the deities. He said if there's simple ingredients, you can offer them directly to the deities and distribute them as prasadam. Because he said in India, temples regularly buy sugar candies, offer them to the deities, and give them out as mahaprasadam. So always bring prasadam with you. In this bag here, I have lollipops. Just walking around the MVT and all the grounds, every chowkidar, everyone I saw gets it. So if anything ever happens here, they'll protect me first, because I gave them all lollipop. Then get their contact information. Collect this valuable information and learn how to keep in touch with people. It's a whole science, but when you do this, it's golden opportunity to be in touch with hundreds and thousands of people you've already made a first contact with and that you already know something about. Finally, thank them for taking their valuable time. Just means take an extra second to tell them, thank you for taking your valuable time. Please say. It's been a pleasure meeting you. What's our prime directive? I'm not convinced. What's our prime directive? Yeah, so if you go out with this idea that I'm going to leave everyone with a good impression, then as a byproduct, you'll automatically sell a lot of books. They'll just naturally go out. If you start with the idea, I have to sell everyone a book, and anyone who doesn't take a book is a retrograde, low-class person, then you'll be very disappointed and you won't be able to stay in this service for very long. But go out and make friends with people. Learn how to make friends. The best way is to give out a lot of prasadam and be friendly with people that you meet. And you'll find out later you didn't know who people were. It turns out the guy you thought was the janitor ends up to be the mayor of the city. You'll see, it all comes around, back around. And in Sankirtan, you have to be holistic and comprehensive, and everyone you meet, share some spiritual knowledge with them, at least make a connection with them. So now I'll take a couple of questions before I go into the next part of the seminar. But before I do, everyone please stand up. Reach into the air as high as you can. And please say Gauranga as loud as you can. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Okay, a question from Shastra Krit.
Sometimes when I present a book, I learn all the laziness, you can say, that I don't do this whole thing, just do one or two things. People take the book and get into the habit of that.
Yeah.
So, what would you advise?
So he was asking, I've presented this long template. It's actually not that long. He didn't say long, I'm saying long. But I'm presenting a template, and he said sometimes he shortens it. Of course, he's a veteran book distributor. He's been doing it many years. You'll find that if you learn this, there are many parts to it that you can use piecemeal in other areas. And once somebody who's beginning learns the template and they get used to it, then they'll be able to innovate and find ways in order to shorten it, or they may not need it. Oftentimes you present to people, oh, this is great, I know all about this, I love it, do you have any more? I'd like to take 5 of them, whatever it is. Then obviously you don't have to go through the whole thing. So that just requires a little practice to see how people react to you. But I give this template because I find that when devotees learn it and they take it out, and their confidence goes up because they know that they have something to present. And I have it all written on a card here. And so if you'd like, before you go, anybody would like to have it on a card, you can take it with you. And it's actually, I've seen some beginners hold the card and read it while they're talking to people. And actually people take books even more readily because they go, oh, they're trying, you know. Larry, give him a donation. He's trying, you know. He doesn't know what to say. So that helps. There's this beautiful devotee in the UK. He's deaf and dumb. What is his name? Huh? Deaf and dumb? Lokanath? I can't hear you from there because of the sound. Madan Mohan. Yes. So I took him out for his first time on book distribution, and he did bigger than anybody. It says he's very determined, enthusiastic. He had an interpreter with it, and everybody stopped, and they were eager to speak to him. There are no limitations to presenting the books. You just have to have a desire to try it. What else? Yes? Best places to distribute books? What's a what place? Oh, proper or improper places. Okay. Well, I have a disciple who's a Christian and she had devoted herself to Jesus Christ her whole life and was very devout and careful about what she did in her life. And when I took her and a group of other devotees in Texas out on book distribution, we went into a bar. And about 5 or 6 people in the bar bought books. And later on she said, the first person who ever took me into a bar was my spiritual master. So there is no real improper place. This was one of the ideas that Kaviraj Goswami gives us. There's no, the members of the Panchatattva didn't consider what is a fit or unfit place, or who is a good candidate or a fit or unfit candidate. They went everywhere and gave people the opportunity. However, having said that, we find that going door to door is something Prabhupada brings up frequently in his purports. Go door to door, go door to door. The purpose of Krishna consciousness movement is go door to door and present Krishna consciousness. So you can try it. There's a lot of doors out there and you never know who's behind them. It's kind of interesting because you knock on the door and then you wonder what's going to happen now. And if you do that all day long, you're sitting there going, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, who's going to open the door? And you don't know. And if you try that, you'll find amazing things. People open the door and there's a whole world back there. People ready to take Krishna consciousness. And once the book goes in and the door closes, there's a great satisfaction that now the book went in there. What's going to happen? You can meditate on that. What's that book doing inside that house? That house previously was a barren place. And now a book went inside and you close the door. Now they're stuck in there with that book. What's going to happen? I used to, when I was a kid, they had these war movies, and they'd have, this guy would shimmy up the hill, and there was a bunker up top with machine gunners, and then these guys, they'd get all the way up there, they throw a little hand grenade inside the bunker, and then boom. So I always feel like that when I put a book in their house, Door opens, throw the book in, close the door, boom. Door to door is nice. And then also shop to shop, going to shops. I'm finding that if you go to non-corporate places, that there's long strings of little shops. It's the same thing as door to door, only people are home. And when we go into these shops, we generally look for the owner or the person who's managing first, and we talk to them. I have very good success with this. Recently, the last place I was in Illinois, in Naperville, Illinois. That place, devotees in Naperville rock. The great book distributors there, about 75 of them that go out. And so we went, we broke up into groups, and the last place we went, there was this smoke shop, electronic smoke. I've seen it around before. I didn't know what it was. Electronic smoke. And it was called Gray Haze. That was the name of the shop. So he went in there, and there was a couple guys behind this smoke bar, and then there was about 4 people in there, like smoking these electronic hookahs. And, you know, smoke all over the place. And I started showing the books, and the guys behind the counter, this is fantastic. And all the customers, wow. Before we left, everyone took a book. Everyone wanted a picture with us. And, you know, you go in these places, and this is Lord Nityananda's work. He would just go search people out. He'd go look for them, you know, knock you in there. Prabhupada said before he came to America, he was in Vrindavan, and he wrote this poem called Vrindavani Bhajan. And he said, people are in their homes, and they're looking down the road, wondering, when are Nitai and Gaur going to come and save me? So if you go door to door, you go shop to shop, you'll find a lot of success. We also have other places, like there's a program now called Motel Gita. Many of the motels in the world are run by Indians, and they're very happy to take Bhagavad-Gitas and put them in each one of the drawers. Just in the last 5 years, we've distributed 500,000 Bhagavad-Gitas by this method of Motel Gita. So there's unlimited ways that you can do, and different venues. You can go anywhere. You just carry books with you wherever you go, and you'll find opportunities to distribute. What else? Yes?
Thank you for
Yes?
we just work, so we distributed Prabhupada Samadhi over 1,000 books sometime ago. And my question was, if I just heard that management has stopped book distribution in the temple. So, can you request why is it that they have been stopped from distributing books in the Vrindavan temple? Can we do something to sell books in the temple in proper price? Management has some problem with that.
Oh, I think they're still selling them out there. I saw. There's these book tables there and in the temple. I think it's okay. Huh? Yeah, well, I think that whatever arrangement they have is probably a good idea, because Panchagoda, and he knows what he's doing. So I would just defer to what Panchagoda Prabhu thinks. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu? Some devotees have many services, and it's difficult to find time for book distribution. What's your suggestion? Okay, take the mic, Shastra, and give it to Shamya Pras. He has many services, and he teaches many classes on Shastra at the temple, but he has a vow to at least every day distribute one book. Maybe even to take him 5 minutes or something like that. Tell us what you do, Shamya Pras.
I just figure to put it wherever I go.
There he is. He has one with him right now.
Put it in the pocket, keep on that person. Whatever I know how to book with them. And I just pray Lord in heaven to send something my way every day and know what happens. Everywhere I go, I just pray to book with me at least one book or so. I just show people how other happens. And that way I stay connected to the other way.
Okay, give him a hand for helping us out here. So, we started a program about 8 years ago called the Monthly Sankirtan Festival. And it's based on the idea that there are thousands, tens of thousands, millions of congregational members in our ISKCON society. They should have the right, they have the right, and they should have the opportunity to go out and distribute books. So we started a program that at least once a month, everyone has a time period that they get to go out together to distribute books. It's designated in the temple calendar a year ahead of time. So every month there's this one period. And it doesn't have to be for a long time, even if it's just for an hour. And when everyone goes out together, they have a lot of fun, you have courage in going out, and the results are amazing. And we found at our little temple in ISKCON of Silicon Valley, We started with just about 5 devotees, and now we have 150 devotees going out for book distribution. And we started by just distributing a few books on a monthly Sankirtan festival. When a devotee would call in and say, I distributed 1 book, we'd all go crazy, because it was a big thing. And now they're out there distributing tens of thousands, 20s of thousands, hundreds of thousands of books, with the principle of a lot of devotees each doing a little bit. The UK is doing this also, utilizing this principle of a lot from a few people. Everyone can just do their level best. So we have, for instance, at our temple in ISV, and it's spreading to other places, a children's Sankirtan program. So when do they start this program? How young are they when they start? Well, even before they're in that baby carriage, they're in the womb, they go out with their mother in the womb, and then when they come out, they're in the baby carriage, they go around, and then when they start to walk around, they start to distribute books. We have children that started when they were 0 years old, and now they're 12 and 14, and they're becoming big leaders, and they've developed compassion. As we saw, one of the leaders, the parent leaders of the Children's Sankirtan program, told us that in the early times when she first started taking out, and many parents do this now, taking out groups of kids to go distribute books, mostly door to door and at festivals. So the first time they faced rejection. Then they all had that look on their face. We just got rejected. What do we do now? So she sat them down. There was a little playground nearby. They all sat down and they talked about it for about 5-10 minutes, what it meant and what it didn't mean. And they understood it. And kids get this kind of understanding when they're very young about what it means to go out and communicate, meet with people. And then recently, a devotee at our temple saw some kids meeting during the Sunday program. They were in a room by themselves, and she sat nearby to listen. And they were having a Sankirtan meeting. They were talking about how to be more compassionate to people, how to distribute more books, what kind of things they should take with them. They're organizing themselves. I like to tell parents that this is better than an MBA. They learn how to do this when they're young, and they become fully equipped to meet the world and all of its complexities and challenges. So everyone has the right to go out and distribute books, but you just have to make the opportunity for them to do it. And when you do, you'll find that everyone thrives. Right here in Vrindavan, 1975, we had our party was called the BBT party, and our leaders went and asked Prabhupada how we should be training devotees to distribute books. And he said, teach them to be sincere. Because if they're sincere and they just try, and then he went like this, he said, then the master within the heart will show them how to do it. And then he said, every devotee has his or her own genius. And if you just sincerely try, then Krishna will bring out that genius. So everybody's qualified. You just have to try, and you can just take a few minutes, like our Shamya Pras here every day. He keeps on that cutting edge by distributing at least 1 book. Have you done your 1 book for today? Okay, go outside this door and distribute the book, and then come back and report to us. Let's cheer him on. Go, Shamya Pras! Go, Shamya Pras! There he goes, out into the unknown. Now what's going to happen? We don't know. But it's pretty exciting just to walk out the door. It's just like, all right, I don't care what happens. I'm just going to depend on Krishna. Anybody can do that. If you do that once a day, it's like catching the Jaladuta. Prabhupada got on the Jaladuta. He didn't know what was going to happen. Everyone said, you're going to die. It won't work. And he said, I don't care. My spiritual master said to do it, so I'm just going to get on the Jaladuta. So everyone can do that. You can just walk out the door and say, I don't care what anybody says. I'm going on book distribution. And you go out and try and see what happens. And Lord Chaitanya will bring you all the energy and all the intelligence and all the people. It all happen. And then your faith becomes strong, because then you see, oh, this is transcendental. I just depend on Krishna and good things happen. Okay. Anything? Yes. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go on to the next part of the presentation. After her, there's a devotee in the back. Raise your hand again. 2, and then up front, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. Go ahead. Hare Krishna. What do you do what? Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Here's, let me introduce you to Nagar Kirtan Prabhu. Give him a hand, come on up here. Nagar Kirtan, this is Nagar Kirtan, give him a hand. That's it? For Nagar Kirtan? Come on. Give it up. It's Nagar Kirtan. Okay, Nagar Kirtan Prabhu is working on with a team where it's called the Language Project. Here's the easiest way to distribute books. If you don't like to think and you're a little bit lazy, like I am, and you like to distribute more books than anybody else, this program's for you. This is called the Language Program. You have a card? Language? Okay, he's going to go get me a card, and while he's getting it, I'm going to tell you what it is. We were in Jagannath Puri earlier this year with a yatra. We had 100 devotees. Anybody here in this room was on the yatra? 1, 2. Okay, three of us. We had a lot of devotees from China, and we had some devotees from Japan, and from all over Europe, different parts of America, and we were talking to people from Orissa. They speak Oriyan, and people from Bengal speak? People from the rest of the India speak? Yeah, and so the Chinese don't know how to speak Hindi. They don't know how to speak Oriyan. They don't know how to speak Bengali. Did that stop them? Say no. That's the time you get to say no. No, it didn't stop them. And here's why. Because they had these handy little language cards. On this simple little card is a mantra. And all you have to do is have the books in each language. And then when you meet somebody, you identify which language they want, you hand them the book. Give me this one. Let the record show that this is Hindi. I don't speak Hindi. He knows Hindi. Read it.
This is not Hindi, this is Bengali.
Okay, whatever. Pretend it's Hindi. Go ahead. You have the right instinct. Give me a donation. Let the record show he just gave a donation. I didn't speak a word of Hindi. Give him a round. Thank you. Now, I'll show you how we perfected the art in Jagannath Puri, because we learned a cultural trait of the people there. And here's how we could distribute a book every time to every person in every place we went around Jagannath Puri. We'll show you. What? He's back. Give him the microphone. Tell us what happened, Shamir Prakash. Come on, give him a round. What happened? Was it scary?
No, it was fun.
See, book distribution's fun and easy. Tell us what happened.
I just walked outside and asked for the time to put me in touch with somebody, and I walked until somebody waved at me. It was super right rude. And I went over and talked to him. And then I showed him the book. And he gave a donation. And it was just a lot of fun.
There you go. Book distribution's fun and easy. Give him another round. So, all it takes is you got to have a book, and then you just go out and try, and things will happen. He walked out, somebody waved to him. He was supposed to say hi, but they came up to him and said hi. Uh-oh. Are you okay? You're all right? Okay, must have been the kitchery. These chairs break all the time. Okay, so what we found out when we were in Orissa, when you go up to people and you kick off your shoes before you hand them the book, so you go up and you kick off your shoes, they kick their shoes off. Because before you do any spiritual transaction in Orissa, you kick off your shoes. So you just walk up to people and I kick off my shoes. And then they look at me and then they kick off their shoes. And then you hand them the book. And then I hand them the card. And there's a video. I did this all over Orissa. And then all the devotees from China, Japan, all over America, they were just walking up to people all over Orissa. They hand them the book, kick off their shoes, hand them the book, hand them the card. They hand the Lakshmi. Then that's it. Give them some prasadam. We gave them prasadam, chanted the Mahamantra. We sold in about 6-7 days, we sold 5,000 books. And we gave out 5,000 pieces of prasadam, and nobody on our yatra spoke Aryan, and nobody spoke Hindi, and nobody spoke Bengali. 5,000. Plus, we collected 1 lakh rupees. 1 lakh rupees. So, we have these little cards in every language. Every language for which there's a book that Prabhupada's book is translated in, we now have one of these cards. And if we don't have it yet, we'll get it for you by tomorrow. You just have to give us the mantra. But we're collecting these, and pretty soon we'll have all of them online. You can download them and print them, give them to your whole yatra. Go out and conquer the world, no problem. Easy peasy. Hare Krishna. What? He's saying we'll have all the languages soon, no problem. Don't worry about it. Okay, there was a couple more? Yes, Harinamananda. A question coming up. Oh, did you ask yours? She's next. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead. Go ahead. Shastrakrit, you're going to have to stand over there and translate for me because I can't hear her. They ask questions about her?
Well, they become like a friend.
Become like her friend.
They become like her friend?
They want to.
Okay, they want to become her friend?
So they lead the conversation.
Leading the conversation.
They're leading the conversation? Okay. Well, in that case, it's like tennis. I told you the question mark is like a tennis racket or hook. So if they start hitting you questions and you don't like the way it's going, you just hit them right back. And the way you do that is you ask questions back. So you can answer a question with a question. Prabhupada did it all the time, and he would direct the conversation by asking questions. Like somebody asked him, a woman reporter said, why do you shave your heads? He said, why do you shave your legs? Another man asked him, a reporter said, so why are you giving sannyas to young people? He said, what do you mean by young? And the reporter didn't have an answer. And Prabhupada said, young or old? Old means about to die. He said, can you say you're any older or younger than I am? And he said, I can't say. So there it is. So it's just practice. It takes a little practice. Okay, next one. Yes?
I didn't have my hand up, but you did notice it. May I ask a question?
Yes?
My question is, you didn't say that we don't accept these books. In the reflections, we only accept donations. Okay? So now what are the types?
I can hear her.
So what if the donation will give us less than the value of the book?
Well, what happens is some people give less and some people give a lot more. And you'll find this, that it all comes out in the wash. In fact, when you're very liberal with distributing books and open-hearted and you give them an opportunity to give as much as they'd like, you'll find that people end up giving way more than you can handle. In fact, the problem we have at most of our places that are very liberal with distributing books is finding out how to distribute the books fast enough. We don't have a Lakshmi problem. Because when you distribute books, everything else comes. The Lakshmi comes. In fact, at our temple, we used to live in such tiny little temples at ISV. And I told the devotees, they said, when are we going to get a big temple? I said, if you keep distributing books, Krishna will come and drop a temple on your head. And so we just kept distributing books, and then Krishna flew over and dropped a temple. It fell right on our head. And one day we were sitting in a nice new big temple, and we looked around and said, wow, we just kept distributing books, and Krishna dropped a temple on our head. So if you just keep distributing books, Krishna will bring Lakshmi and everything else. Just go try, you'll see. I mean, we were in Pune 2 years ago. I was in Pune, we're going down the street, letting a few books go here and there, and the last guy of the day owned a potato chip factory. And he just happened to love us. And he gave thousands of rupees and took a huge stack of books, gave us a tour of the potato chip factory, gave us a bag of potato chips. I mean, what's better than that? So everything good happens if you just keep an open heart and just try to help people. Don't be too worried. Lord Chaitanya is unlimited. He's mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as a wealthy capitalist, spiritual capitalist. He'll back you. Probably came with no money, just a box of books. And he started a whole big movement because he was backed by Lord Chaitanya. So he'll back you wherever you go. Okay.
When I showed in the book, many people told me, I'm from another religion, so
Many people look at the book and they say, I'm a different religion.
yeah, so sometimes they
And they say what?
so how can I explain
Well, like if someone, say, have the book here, come back up here. You give me that book. Now watch this. The book's on yoga and meditation, shows how you got free from stress. He looks at it and he says, sorry, I'm a Christian. Oh, I'm sorry, here. This one's for you. I give him a different book. And I go and explain it. Or this one happened to me recently. I was in Toronto. I gave the man a book. I was in front of a museum and I gave him a book, books on yoga and meditation. And then he said, I'm a Christian. Say I'm a Christian. If there were more people like you in the world, it would be a better place to live. It's people of faith like you who are keeping the world alive. And he bought the book. He gave me $20. So the principle is to honor objections. If somebody gives an objection, don't try to resist it, but appreciate it. Appreciate what the rejection is and go with it. And honor what the rejection is and give a replacement for them. Buddha book? He's a Buddha. Sorry, here, I'll give you the Buddha book. I was out in front of an Indian store in Houston, Texas, a bunch of new devotees, Indian devotees. I was showing them how to distribute books. We had a table, and a man came out of the Indian store, and I showed him the book, and he said, I'm a Muslim. And he handed the book back. Say, I'm a Muslim, hand the book back. He said he's a Muslim, handed the book back. I told the devotees behind the table, I said, give me the Muslim book. They looked at me like I was crazy. I said, give me the Muslim book. And then they said, well, like what? And I said, that one. And he handed me a Krishna book. And I handed him the Krishna book. I said, listen. Allah is within everyone's heart. The main purpose of life is to develop a love for Allah. And people have forgotten Allah. That's the problem in the world. And he bought the Krishna book. Thank you. It's the same thing. It's just they've gotten caught in some upadi, so you have to help them out a little bit. Appreciate their faith. Tell them how much you appreciate them. And if people are resistant, they don't want it, they're not a ripe fruit, just leave them with a good impression. That's good enough. You don't have to sell everybody a book. Just look for the people who are open, and you'll live a happy life. And you'll feel young all the time. And there'll be a spring in your step. You'll have no anxiety. Okay, last one.
Thank you for that. My question is when we distribute on the line and the people arrive for Bhagavad-Gita and we have to distribute the books in the same time to make them how to touch them.
People, you're distributing books to people in the Charnamrita line? That's interesting. That's a unique problem here in Vrindavan. And so what's the difficulty?
When I should give them the direction so that they keep one line, and at the same time to say that they are a distributor who will give them a book for that will be a wonderful book, and yes, and sometimes I'm asked because I have not just but I would like to have something change my behavior because sometimes I'm just
I can't quite understand the problem, but if you're distributing books in the Dham to people in a Charnamrita line, I don't think you have many problems in life. I'll talk to you afterwards and try to get us more specific. Hare Krishna. Are y'all okay? Do you have another 30 minutes in you? Yes. Okay, 3 people. So you 3 can move up to the front. Everybody else? Are you ready? You want to go for 30 more minutes? Yes. All right, here we go. The pen is mightier than the sword. I want to convince you right now how important it is to distribute books and how powerful is the written word. Are you up for that? Yes? Okay, listen. This is an old saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. It was written by a poet. And here are the first words I ever wrote to my mother. Because I came home from school, I think it was in 2nd grade. I don't remember what grade it was, but I was a little kid. And they were just teaching me how to write at school. So I came home, and I wanted to go to my friend's house. His name was Lance. So I took out a piece of paper and I wrote, I at Lance, and I left it for my mother and I left. And she came home and she knew where I was. I was at my friend's house, Lance's house. And when I came home, it was like a war hero just came back, that I left her a note that I'd written in my own hand. And when my mother passed away about 8 years ago, and I went through all her personal effects, that note was still there. She kept it her whole life. She was so proud of the fact that I wrote something. And that made me think, when I was writing my book, Our Family Business, I wrote a whole chapter on the power of the written word. It's how human beings, I just saw a book table, actually, I was walking down the alley. Devotees set up book tables everywhere around this campus. And anywhere you put up a book table, devotees are like bees. They'll come in there. What is it? I'll take it. Give me 5 of them. Because everyone wants to read something. We consume. We get information through reading. It's very powerful. So the written word's been around for a long time. Prabhupada writes this: the more we produce such literature and sell them profusely all over the world, the more we shall deliver the world from a suicide course. So there's a main purpose to this written word that we're distributing. There's a strategy behind it. This is the inscription above the entrance to the Brooklyn Public Library. It's a huge library in New York. It says, farther than arrow, higher than the wings, fly poet's song and prophet's word. This is a famous personality named Thomas Carlyle. And he wrote something that I appreciated very much about the power of books. In books lies the soul of the whole past time, the articulate, audible voice of the past, all that mankind has done, thought, gained, or been. It is lying, as in magic preservation, in the pages of books. See, every religious tradition holds together because of their written body of language, their canon that they have. This is what defines them. This is what guides them. And you notice the various religious traditions in the world represented by the books that you see on that shelf. When I heard a lecture by His Holiness Sri Dayananda Maharaj some years ago, he described the history of Buddhism how there are very few writings at all, very scanty. There's just a few words that were ascribed to him, to the Buddha, as him speaking a sermon. A few little tablets like this of things that he said. And from that, Buddhism has spread all over the world. Think for a moment what we're starting with. Not just a few little tablets. We're starting with the most eloquent of all books in the world, the Srimad Bhagavatam, arguably. In fact, Radhika Raman, the great scholar and pundit, presents the Srimad Bhagavatam and talks about the eloquency of the Sanskrit within the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like no other literature in the world, like no other Purana in the world. We're starting with that in Bhagavad-Gita and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the basis upon which our movement is started. Is it conceivable then that it can spread all over the world based on these writings? Yes. These are statements from the Vedanta Sutra emphasizing the importance of the written scripture. The entire material manifestation began from sound, and sound can also end material entanglement if it has a particular potency. The particular sound capable of doing this is the Transcendental Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The Vedanta Sutra says you have to know God through Scripture. God cannot be known by inference, only through the Scripture. The written Scripture is very important. It's the final authority. Pronouncements of human reasoning can never perfectly free one from doubt because there's no finality in human reason. Therefore, the final authority is the Scripture. The defects of human reasoning do not apply in the case of God because the Scriptures so declare it, and the Word of God alone is the root from which we learn anything about these transcendental subjects. So people in the world feel incomplete everywhere in the world, and the reason is, Prabhupada mentions this in the Sri Upanishad, all forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. But the complete whole can be known, as we heard from the Vedanta Sutra, through the Scriptures. So when you give somebody a book, you're giving them the opportunity to directly connect with Krishna. In fact, in the Padma Purana, it mentions how the Srimad Bhagavatam itself is a deity of Krishna. When we go door to door to sell sets of Srimad Bhagavatams, oftentimes people, to avoid buying the whole Bhagavatam set, they'll say, I'll just take one book. And we say, that's very admirable. Only problem is, it's a deity. We can't split it up. And we show them the verse that explains how the first canto is the lotus feet of Krishna, first two cantos. The 11th canto and 12th canto is the crown of Krishna. The 10th is the smiling face. It all represents, it's all part of his transcendental body. Now, literatures go everywhere. They're magical. Here's Hector's story. You want to hear Hector's story? Yes. Say yes. Yes. Okay, here's Hector. Hector's the name of a man in America. It's a common name. People call it Hector. So one day, Mitrasena was out distributing books at Fisherman's Wharf. And he met a guy named Hector. Everyone say Hector. So Hector was a wise guy. Hector wanted to take a book and give a very small donation and walk away and make a Hare Krishna feel bad. That was his object in life. So Hector said to Mitra, you sign the book to me. You put my name in it, then I'll give you a donation. So Mitra wrote in the book, he said, to Hector from Mitra. He handed the book. It was a $5 book. And Hector gave him $1 and said, thanks for the book, see you later, and he walked away. Mitra was perfectly happy, but Hector thought that he had pulled one over on a Hare Krishna. So the next day, Mitrasena is sitting in his ashram in a city across the bay called Berkeley. And the temple president calls him and says, you know, there's a guy named Hector. He's here to talk to you. He really wants to meet with you. And Mitra goes out and he thinks it's going to be the other Hector, but he goes, it's another Hector. Hector 1 took the book. He walked into a store and just put it in the window and then walked out. Hector 2 came walking down the street, saw the book just leaning in the windowsill, and he picked it up because he was a seeker. He opened the book and it said, to Hector from Mitra. He then looked for the number and he found the local number and he called and he said, who is this Mitra? I got to meet him. How did he know that I was going to get that book? How did he know? And Mitrasena told me, he said, these miracles, these kinds of miracles happen so frequently that he wasn't even amazed. Mitra wasn't even amazed that this had happened. But the transcendental literature, when it's written down, it becomes a vessel. It can go all over the world. So books are containers. And these containers hold within them idea seeds. Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. All good ideas, seeds come from the scriptures, like Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. That's where they come from. And this was a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who read and revered the Bhagavad-Gita. So now, what is the Jiva soul? What's he called as a category of energy? Tatasta. What does tatasta mean? Marginal. It also means open to suggestion. Say open to suggestion. Little Jiva, he's marginal, so anything you tell little Jiva, he can accept it. Because he can go anywhere. He can go material world, spiritual world. You say, little Jiva, look over here. Check this out. Next thing you know, little Jiva's into a new thing. Because he heard about it. He's open to suggestion. And that's a problem. Little Jiva's just wandering around aimlessly in the material world and sees things like a sign that says, drink Coca-Cola. And the Coca-Cola sign says, open a bottle of happiness. So little Jiva thinks, I'm going to open a Coca-Cola bottle and drink happiness. And what does he get in the bottle? He gets sugar water and caffeine. There's no happiness in the bottle. But the reason that he takes it is because he saw it. There was a suggestion. And therefore, books transform the world through this suggestive power. Who here has the book called The Origin of the Species? You must have it in your car or your apartment somewhere. Who here has heard of the theory of evolution? Raise your hand. Evolution. Almost everybody, but you don't have the book. Have you read it? No. But the idea seed's already spelled out all over the world from this one book, and people believe in evolution. Because someone told them, little Jiva goes, all right, okay, it's a great idea. It's in the book, I read it. And there are all economic systems we accept as being axiomatic truth. Capitalism, communism, all these ideas, they come from books also. Here's Communist Manifesto. For years, people stood behind this book. This is the absolute truth. This is how we live. Because the little Jiva's open to suggestion. Fidel Castro. Who's heard of Castro? Cuba. He was in jail. He was a nobody, a little revolutionary. But from jail, he wrote down his ideas for a new society. It was called History Will Absolve Me. And he smuggled them out of the jail. It was written in lime juice. His fiancée would smuggle them out. It looked like blank pages. They would reconstitute them in the sun. He made them into this little booklet. They distributed it widely. And the whole place was ready for revolution when Cuba came out, when Fidel Castro came out of prison. Who's heard of America, USA? 3 people. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What did it used to be before America? It was a colony of the British Crown. There was a revolution. That's what changed everything. What caused the revolution? Well, according to historians, it was a book. It was a book called Common Sense, written by Thomas Paine, who was a revolutionary. He distributed it to everybody in the colonies. He sold it. To date, it is per capita the best-selling book of all time. Everybody bought it in the colonies. Everybody read it, and they were ready for revolution. It changed the world. Holy Bible. People all over the world have taken to Christianity because of the Bible. And here's how it got started. A man named Gutenberg. Johannes Gutenberg in 1440 started a printing press just so he could print Bibles. Before that, they had an arduous process of making Bibles. They were very hard to get. When he started printing them, they were available all over the world, and Christianity began to grow very rapidly. There's a picture of the first Gutenberg Bible from his printing press. So this was a huge revolution, the printing press, Gutenberg printing press. First print was 180 Bibles. That's huge. Because if you keep this in mind, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got the Brahma Samhita, he made a copy for all of his associates. How long do you think that took? How long do you think it took? For one copy. He said a few weeks. Did you know that they had to write it by hand? On palm leaves. They used a little metal instrument called a stylus, and they have to press down on it, on the palm leaf, to make one word, one letter. They have to press it down. And the people who copied it were illiterate. They only knew how to copy the words from one to the next. It took weeks, months, years sometimes to make these scriptures, so they're very rare. They're hard to come by. But when the printing press came out, they were available for everybody. When the Protestant movement started, it was called 95 Theses, and they were written down, and they spread all over Europe. And that's when the Protestant Revolution took hold, because of the written word. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, knowing the trends in the world, started this Vaishnav depository to collect all the Vaishnav literatures in one place, a library and printing press for publishing canonical devotional texts. There's a research center in Calcutta. If you go there, you'll find that this Bhaktivedanta Research Center has many of these original writings, some of them written by hand, some of them that were touched by our acharyas, that they were keeping these books very meticulously. So this was Prabhupada's appreciation for this logo. He said, this should be our logo. This is Sherwin-Williams paint, and their logo is Cover the Earth. So he said, just like the communists, they're very expert in distributing their literature. Therefore, we must print hundreds and thousands of books and distribute them at the same speed. If there are amply books, everything else will succeed. Practically, our society is built on books. And you can see this is Prabhupada superimposed on the skyline of New York City. When he came to New York, he was sitting there typing. Did you know that Prabhupada typed with 2 fingers? 2 index fingers like this. Click, click, clack, clack. And he would just keep writing and piling up the manuscripts that turned into his celebrated books. There they are. One little click at a time. So Prabhupada said, now we have set fire. Even if they stop externally, internally it will go on. And in the same letter, he said, there was a lawsuit against us in New York. They tried to sue us and say we weren't actually religion. So Prabhupada had the devotees take all the books into the judge and say, here, read these and you decide. We won the case. But Prabhupada reacted and he said the brainwashed books are already out. It can't be stopped now. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, only by building ideal lives and a mansion of books can the message of Bhagavad Bhakti remain permanently in this sphere. So, in history, I told you about Thomas Paine, and another great revolutionary, Thomas Jefferson, said to Paine, go on doing with your pen what in other times was done with the sword. The pen is mightier than the sword. You'll see on this left-hand side a sample of handwritten scrolls, printed meticulously with a little stylus, juxtaposed with the early printing press. So what are we? We're a sampradaya. And a sampradaya means giving the greatest gift. That's what it means. That gift gets passed down. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the Sri Brahma Samhita, the Krishna Karnamrita. Personally, he passed those on. Now I want you to look at this picture of Brahma and tell me if there's anything you notice that's unusual about this picture. This picture was taken with Kodak film at the beginning of time. What's unusual about this picture? Since it's the very beginning of creation. He's holding a book. Why is that unusual? There weren't a lot of printing presses at the beginning of time, right? But Rabindra Swarup Prabhu, who wrote the foreword to my book, Our Family Business, told me that we are known as the sampradaya of the book. And that's why whenever you see Brahma at the beginning of creation, he's holding a book in his hand. Now let's look at a few other pictures. I want you to help me out. I want you to say book or books. But you got to say it really loud so it scares people outside. Book. That's pretty good. Who's this? What's he writing? You can say book or books. He's famous for writing books, isn't he? Say yes. Okay, who's this? What's he holding in his hand? That's correct. He's holding a book. Who is this? What's he writing? Who's this? What's he sitting there writing? Who's this? What are they writing? Who's this? Oh, by the way, what's he posing with? That's right. Who's this? Oh, I just noticed something. What's behind him? Who's that? Well, what's he posing with? Correct. Very good. 100%. So this is our legacy. This is the perfect gift. This is the sampradaya. This is what we bring down. This is the gift we can pass on to people, coming down from the beginning of time. This book gives access to higher association to people all over the world. This is the opening of the Krishna Balaram Temple, 1975. And we were all sitting there thinking, how did this happen, this miracle, bringing people from all over the world? Prabhupada's pen made it happen. These are originals that Prabhupada brought on the Jaladuta. I have a question for you. How did they end up in Boise, Idaho? Do you know where it is, Boise? That's the point. You don't even know where it is. How did these books end up in Boise, Idaho? Nobody knows. They're like a message in a bottle. Recently, the oldest message in a bottle was discovered. It had floated from America or Europe to America, and it was verified. It was 103 years old. And somebody had corked it up, sealed it, and there was an original message that had floated across the ocean. So these books, when they go out into the ocean of material existence, they float here and there, and then they pop up in people's lives. These ended up at a library, these original books Prabhupada brought on the Jaladuta in Boise, Idaho. The librarian there was selling them by the pound, and a devotee walked in and bought these books. How about Atlantic City? It's one of the biggest gambling places on the planet, Atlantic City. How did that Bhagavad-Gita end up at a yard sale in Atlantic City? Nobody knows. These books go everywhere. When you distribute a book, you don't know where it's going to go, where it's going to end up, but it will go somewhere. So Prabhupada writes, someday people will come to understand what valuable knowledge they have received. When one book is published, I think I have conquered an empire. Fight with Maya means to drop thousands of millions of books into the laps of conditioned souls. We are interested in weapons of mass instruction. The future of the book is very bright. Publishers now expect most of their sales to remain in print books for decades to come, some say forever. Sales of paperback books are up. Independent bookstores are thriving again. The threat of a digital apocalypse has subsided as ebook sales have tumbled. That's from New York Times, 2016. Trend is going on. This TOVP, hundreds of thousands of dollars every year comes from the sales of books. It's foundational to our whole ISKCON society. Now, just about reading the books, one brahmachari came up to me this morning and said, so how do I read these books more? One piece of advice for improving your sadhana is to read Prabhupada's books every day. When you look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, one might become overwhelmed by the sheer size of the book and think, I don't have time to finish that whole book. Well, if you try to do it in one day or 1 week, that's true. But if you divide it into small pieces and try to read it over 5 years, how easy might that be? Well, I asked myself the same question one day. And I thought, how would I find out? Well, first I would count all the pages. So I did that. And my good friend Srivas Pandit Prabhu helped me then to go through all of Prabhupada's books and list all the numbers of pages for each one of the books we had in print. And then I made a chart. And the chart shows you how many pages of each book you have to read every day in order to complete any of the books in a certain amount of time. So, if you wanted to finish the whole Bhagavatam, all 12 cantos, in 5 years, could you pinpoint the number of pages you have to read each day? Is it possible? How would you do that? You'd count them? I have an easier way that you can do it. Yes?
I'd look on your chart.
He'd look on my chart. I have an even easier way than that. We now have an app. It's for Android and for iOS. You can go to the App Store, it's a free app, and you can download Be a Sage. It's called Be a Sage, page by page. Say it, Be a Sage. Page by page. 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 And if you download that app, you'll be able to click through every one of Prabhupada's books. He wanted to know what it was. And you can find the book. It will tell you how many pages you have to read a day to finish in any increment of time that you'd like to choose. For instance, for those who would like to complete the Bhagavatam in 1 year, how many pages is it? Say 41. That is correct. You can look it right up. So take this application and try it out for yourself. You'll see that it will help you. The Goswamis counted. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gananatibi. They counted how much they did every day. And so if you stay on a schedule and you read every day, you'll feel very happy. Okay? He's got it. He's got it. It actually exists. It's there on the app. Now, what about the Bhagavad-Gita? Prabhupada said, read at least one chapter every day. So you can chant one chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, the verses, the Sanskrit or the English. How long will it take you? 10 minutes maximum. If you do 15 or 12, which takes about 5 minutes, 4 minutes, out of 24 hours, what percentage of that is your day, of your day is that? 0.0 something. It's very tiny. So we have an organization called CHAD, Chapter a Day. And devotees all over the world volunteer for this program called CHAD, and they can then decide to vow to chant one chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day. So if you do these two things, read a set number of pages every day from Prabhupada's books, and chant at least one chapter a day, I guarantee that your life will become improved in amazing ways. You'll make better decisions. You'll feel better about yourself. People will like you more. Everywhere you go, people say, you look spiritual. What's your secret? And your life will explode into change. So Srila Prabhupada writes, if you kindly read my books carefully, then all your spiritual desires will be fulfilled. So we've talked today about the very specific methodology that one can use for distributing books to Indians, for Europeans and Americans. I also talked in detail about the strategy of distributing books, how it's a good strategy. It will change the world. It's well thought out, and it's happened many times before in history, and it's happening now by distributing Prabhupada's books. And I've also talked about the importance of reading Prabhupada's books every day, and also chanting at least one chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day. And I thank you very much for taking your valuable time to come down here. I wrote this book called Our Family Business, and I gave it to the BBT. It is not my book. I wrote it because many senior devotees asked me to write down any of the realizations I've had over the years from distributing books. And as I wrote it, I felt compelled to write a history of book distribution as it was started by Srila Prabhupada. First in India before he came here, and then when he came to America, and then all over the world, and everything that he said about it. There's that and many other chapters I included within the book. The devotees have a few copies of that book in the back. I have to leave rather quickly, but if you want a copy of the book, I've heard it's 300 rupees. The money doesn't go to me, it goes to whoever owns these books, the local temple or somebody else. But I have a few minutes, and if you want some of the books, I'll write an inscription in it just out of appreciation. And then I hope to see you all again soon on the mark somewhere around the world, distributing books, reading the books, and chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakalpaduruscha kripasindhebhya patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I have a few